Sudev. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadanti Swapadantikam. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे ओम कृष्ण पदाय कृष्ण कृष्ण Hare Krishna. So today we will look into the chapter 13. So in the last chapter, we have seen that how Dhruva Maharaj, no, he's gone back to Godhead, right? So we have seen the descriptions how the Vishnu Dutas they come and they take Dhruva Maharaj. So in the end of the last chapter, we see that Narad Muni he mentions sorry, we see the mention of Narad Muni praising Dhruva Maharaj when the Prachetas are doing performing sacrifice, right? So in this chapter, we see that at the very start, no, so we see an inquiry from uh, sorry, Vidurji, right? So he asked like, no, how is that? No, that no, Narad Muni is praising Dhruva Maharaj in front of Prachetas, and who are these personalities, Prachetas, and what they were doing and why they were doing, right? So this is how the conversation starts between Vidurji and Maitreya. So we see that Vidurji is very inquisitive and he asks further about more questions about Prachetas and Dhruva Maharaj's life. So here we can see quite evidently that no devotees, they're always fascinating or they're always interested in hearing about Krishna Katha, right? So if we look into the very start of the Bhagavatam also, so we see how Parikshit Maharaj, who was cursed, right, that he would die in 7 days, but no, he would keep on listening to Sukadev Goswami, right, the Bhagavatam text. And in the middle, Sukadev Goswami would ask Parishit Maharaj, like, no, are you feeling tired? No, do you want to eat something? No, but we see that Parishit Maharaj is not interested in doing anything except hearing about the Supreme Lord, right? So, uh, maybe the materialistic people may not be able to understand these things, right? So even if we look our life also, before we took up to Krishna consciousness, visiting a temple was a very rare occasion, and if it would be also, it would be a very short visit, right? So if at all somebody had the habit of visiting some temple on a particular day, so we would just probably early in the morning after taking bath, we would just go and visit the temple and come back. So in my childhood, I remember, no, immediately after we all kids, we were four of us in the house. So whenever we took bath in the morning, so we were encouraged by our parents that no, there was nearby temple. So they would encourage us, no, go visit temple and come. So we would just go visit temple, take darshan, do pradakshina, take some chanamrit, and we would be back. So it would be hardly some 15-20 minutes of activity, right? So for a general materialistic person, So in a day, if he has to take some time for the Lord also, it is very short amount of period, right? But here we see, in case of devotees, no, they are not what to say, they're not tired of getting involved in devotional activities, especially Krishna Katha, right? So now, after many years of practice, we all can see that no, all the practicing devotees are sadhakas. Now we are more interested in serving the Lord, spending time with the devotees, doing Vaishnava Seva, doing deity Seva, right? Spending much of our time in temple hearing to Krishna Katha, right? So generally, if we look at our Sunday feast morning program, so most of the devotees who come at 7:30 for Darshanarti, they would leave only at probably 12 or 12:30 in the afternoon. And when you tell your family friends or your friends, now they would be astonished, like, what would you do for so much of time at temple, spending 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, right? It is very difficult, right? But in purport, Prabhupada mentions that no, once a person is on the path of devotional service, so he's never satisfied, right? He's never satisfied and he's never satiated, right? So many times we have heard the story of Dhruv Maharaj, right? So from our probably childhood, we would have heard, but no, in last so many months, no, we have been hearing so much about Dhruv Maharaj, and it is not that we have never heard or we don't know the story, right? But still, the deeper we try to read or hear about devotees' activities, the more we try to relation, the more we try to learn from their life story, right? So this is one point we see that Prabhupada stresses in this shloka. And in the next shloka, we see that Vidurji, right? So now if we talk about Vidurji also, so now there's a conversation. So if we go back from where we are hearing this Dhruv Maharaj story, so there's a conversation between Vidurji and Maitreya Muni. So if we look at Vidurji himself, right? So he himself have been no he has been sent away from his own kingdom by the Dhritarashtra, right? So but Vidurji, he would never feel bad for what is happening to him. He doesn't feel that no, for so long I have been serving my brother Dhritarashtra and I'm a well-wisher, but he's not able to understand. No, he doesn't think like that. He just takes that as a will of the Lord, and then he just moves out of the kingdom because no, Duryodhan, who is the son of Dhritarashtra, he tells that no, this Vidurji, though he is our servant, no, though he is eating or he is living on what we are giving, but he is trying to take the side of the enemies of the Pandavas, right? So Duryodhan never liked whatever Vidurji gave advice to Dhritarashtra, but nevertheless Vidurji took that moment as a boon from Krishna, the Supreme Lord, and he just walked away to pilgrimage, visiting all the places. Right, so that is a wonderful quality of Vidurji which we can see, and that is why we can see that he has so much of interest in hearing. He's continuing to hear about the devotees of the Lord and about the pastimes of the Lord. So here when Maitreya Muni, he mentions that that Prachetas, that Narad Muni, right? So Narad Muni is one of the greatest devotees, right? So what is that he is doing all the time? He is either praising the Lord or he is either praising the devotees of the Lord, right? So here we see that there is a mention that when the Prachetas are doing yajna, so in that context, Narad Muni is present and then he is glorifying Dhruv Maharaj. And now um, Vidurji want to know who the Prachetas are. So while talking about the Prachetas, so Prachetas are the one who come actually in the lineage of Dhruv Maharaj. So Dhruv Maharaj is actually they're one of the ancestors. So in order to talk about Prachetas, so we see that Maitreya Muni, he actually talks about the lineage of Dhruv Maharaj. So immediately after Dhruv Maharaj gives up uh, this family life or the kingdom and he goes to forest. So it is mentioned that Dhruv Maharaj wanted to give his kingdom to his son Utkala, right? So his elder son's name was Utkala. But Utkala was a very realized soul. No, he was not interested in any of the material activities, right? So one of the example, if we remember from Bhagavatam, we can look at Jad Bharat, right? So Jad Bharat, he was a very renounced and very learned person, right? But Jad Bharat, he remembered all his previous past lifetimes. He could remember that how when he was like King Bharat, no, he became a very great devotee. But at the end, no, he died remembering a deer. He was able to develop affection towards a deer, and again, when he took the birth of a deer, then how he could remember his previous life as a great devotee, and then he continued his devotional activities in that body of deer. But again, when he takes up another body after deer, then he remembers that no, I don't want to waste this lifetime, and then he would act like a mad person, right? So there are very detailed descriptions of Jad Bharat in Bhagavatam. So here we see Utkal also, he was very similar, no, to Jad Bharat. He was very, very much renounced. So in the purport, no, we see Prabhupada mentions about this verse from Bhagavad Gita, which is 6.30. Yo mam pashyanti sarvatra sarvam cha mahi pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sache me na pranashyati. So here in Krishna is telling to Arjuna that for one who sees me, no, yo mam pashyati sarvatra, right? So someone who looks at me everywhere. So he sees me everywhere. Sarvam cha mai pashyati. And who sees in everything? Me. Right? So for that person, Krishna is telling, I am not lost and he is never lost to me. So here, Utkal was also on the similar bhava, right? So Utkal would see the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna everywhere and in everything. So generally, when we take up a very responsible person position. So here Utkala is actually son of a king, and here we see that Dhruv Maharaj, he wants to give the kingly position to Utkala, but though it is a responsible position, but he is not interested in taking up the kingly affairs, right? So generally, if we look into the world, we have four kind of ashrams, right? So there is brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. So it is not that everybody is encouraged to take up grahastha ashram, right? So the the underlying Sanatan Dharma or the the topmost rule for a person is that he should be able to remember Krishna and he should not be able to forget Krishna all the time, right? So anything, whatever we do in our daily life or whatever path one chooses to follow, the only principle one has to follow is that he should not be able to forget Krishna and he should remember Krishna all the time, right? So if something which we choose can take care of these two things, then it Shastra says that it precedes, oversees everything, right? So in this case also, though Utkal was a kingly person, born in a kingly family, but he was not interested in taking the position of a king or responsibility of a king. So like in the other cases, like someone who cannot uh, be in brahmachari, who cannot remain unmarried and take up to devotional service, then those people are encouraged to get married and then perform their devotional activities, right? So the devotional activities aspect remains the same, whether we are in brahmachari or grahastha or vanaprastha or sannyas, right? So the preceding rule which oversees everything is that we should be able to remember Krishna all the time, and that can be done only when we are able to perform devotional activities, right? So we can start with Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, right? So the nine angas which Prahlad Maharaj mentions. So all these things, right, we can do, which would help us remember Krishna all the time. So here, because Utkal was a Mahabhagavat, so he didn't wanted to take up the uh, kingly position, and then he wanted to renounce and he wants to go to forest. Uh, we see that because King Utkal, who was the elder son, was not interested. So we see that he had a younger brother, Vatsara. So now, because Dhruv Maharaj had to go to forest and he has to establish a king. So without a king, a kingdom cannot flourish, nor it can progress in spiritual activities, right? So even for a family, if there is no father or husband, it becomes very difficult for the family to progress, even materialistically or in spiritual aspect also, right? So now in this case, because Utkala was not interested, so we see that Dhruv Maharaj, he establishes his younger brother Vatsara as a king or as a ruler. So from here we see Maitri Muni, he describes the complete lineage, and basically that is the name of this chapter, no? Descriptions of descendants of Dhruv Maharaj. But we see that now there is a lot of description about various kings, like who comes after Vatsara, and finally we come to know that no, the time passes into Dwapar Yuga, where we see that King Anga takes up as the kingly position, and then he mentions that King Anga, he gives birth to a son called Veena, who again becomes king after King Anga. But because of his bad character, Maitreya Muni mentions that he's killed by the Brahmanas. And then this was very shocking to Vidurji, right? Because a king is like a Naranarayana, right? So king has to be respected as the supreme personality of Godhead, right? So for all the prajas, the king is the only hope. So if there is no good king who is ruling, then it becomes very difficult for the praja to progress in any aspect. So if there is a no proper king, there could be chances of thieves and dacoits, no, and other bad elements who could actually harass the general public. And when there is no dharma being followed in the kingdom, then there is no question of spiritual growth of all the citizens, right? So for that reason, we see that Vidurji is very shocked that, no, how can Brahmanas kill King Venu? And how is that? No, the situation has arisen that they have to kill their own king, right? So to this, the Maitreya Muni, he explains that no, long a time when King Anga, no, when he becomes the king. So one time he performs Ashwamedha Yajna, right? So he's performing his usual yajna because that was the time for no sacrifice in Dwapar Yuga. That is the process of realizing the God, right? So when he was doing this Ashwamedha Yajna, so one thing he observed was none of the demigods are coming and taking part in the sacrifice. They are not taking their share of whatever is being offered. So King Anga, he becomes very much worried. So he asked the Brahmanas, no, is there anything I am doing something wrong, right? Because when we do some yajna, there are so many things we have to follow, no? The place of arena, uh, for which is which is for the sacrifice, it has to be very much purified. The people who are performing the yajna should be purified or should be pure, or the articles which are being used, or even the head who is trying to perform. So in this case, King Anga, so he has to purify himself. So now looking at all these things, he tries to clarifies with the Brahmanas. So why is that the demigods are not taking part in this? No, they are not taking share. So can you just tell me, is there anything wrong we are doing, right? But the priest, they explain, no, the pujaris or the munis who were doing the yajna, they explain that it is not because of your current lifetime activities, but in the past life you have committed some sinful activities, because of which you are not able to beget a son. Because you don't have a son, so the demigods are not coming and taking their share from the sacrifice. So now king becomes very much worried that he's not able to satisfy the devatas, right? So because the king's duty is to satisfy devatas so that they can actually shower their blessings onto him and his kingdom. So now he asks them, like, what he should be doing because of this situation. Then they advise that no, he should be uh, conducting a sacrifice to Lord Vishnu so that he can beget a son. So at that moment, King uh, Anga, he starts making preparation for a sacrifice by which he could get a son. So finally, after the sacrifice, at the end of the sacrifice, so we see that there is a demigod who appears, or Vishnuduta in fact, and he gives a pot of sweet rice, and then King feeds it. No, King Anga feeds it to her wife, and then he begets a son actually, right? So it is said that the queen, no, who was actually who gave birth to king this Veena, she actually was a grandson of Mrityu demigod, right? So that's why, because of her maternal relationship, so she got a son of a bad character. So in this case, we see that King Anga, he was a very great, uh, pious king with a good character. But still, when he got a son, he got a very cruel or a wicked son, right? So many times we see that sometimes people are very pious, but they don't get good spouse or good children. So it is mentioned here that in purport, Prabhupada mentions that whether we have a good partner or we don't have good partner who is not so much interested in devotional service, still that situation would help one to progress in his devotional activities, right? So there is one example where a person after marriage, he comes to the Lord, in front of the Lord, and he prays that, oh, thank you, Lord, no, for giving me such a wonderful partner, no, who is very much interested in doing your seva. So in that way, me and my wife together, we can remember you and we can serve you. And there is another instance who comes to the Lord and he prays, oh Lord, thank you, no, for giving me a partner who is not at all interested in doing devotional service. So in this way, I would not develop attachment to my wife, and then in that way I would always remember you, right? So in any of the case, no, whether we have uh, circumstances which are very very conjugal in executing devotional service, or whether we face any circumstances which are against no performing devotional services, both of them help actually devotee to come closer to the Lord, right? So all of us want to be happy, right? So there is no one who actually prays that no, they should face some calamities or face or go through some sorrows, right? But still sorrows come in our life, right? So why the sorrows come in our life? Because they help us to actually relieve us from current attachments or anarthas, whatever we are having, and they help us in actually our surrender to the Supreme Lord. So in this context, we see that King Kunti, right, in first canto, we see in the prayers of Kunti Maharani. So when Krishna is about to leave, right, so the Mahabharat uh, war has happened and Pandavas have come victorious. And after staying for few months in Hastinapur, so finally King Krishna, sorry, the Lord Krishna is about to move, about to leave Hastinapur to Dwarka. So at that moment, no, everybody is feeling separation from Lord Krishna because they know that now for whatever reason, Krishna had come to help us. So that has been resolved, and now it's time for Krishna to live, and we will never know when we would see him the next time. So in this separation, we see that King Kunti Maharani, she offers prayers to Lord Krishna, right? So in that, one of the shloka is विपदा सन्तुतः शाश्वत तत्र तत्र जगद्गुरु भवतो darshanam yatsya punnarbhava. So she's telling that all these calamities, vipada shantuta shashvat, no, let all the calamities, no, let it come again and again. Why? Because it helps me. This is Jagadguru. Who is Jagadguru? Krishna. Bhavato darshanam yatsya. No, so during this calamities. So during this time of difficulties, so these difficulty times, they help us to remember Lord Krishna. So if there are moments of happiness, no, which doesn't help us to remember Krishna, then those moments of happiness are of no use, right? Because they would not help us to come out of this cycle of Bhavasagar, right? Or this cycle of repetition of birth and repetition of a birth and death cycle, right? So the samsara chakra. So when any activity which is not helping us to achieve our end goal, so that is not useful. So it is better we be in a situation which helps us to achieve our end goal of our life. So that's the reason here we see that Kunti Maharani is praying that no, let the calamities come again and again in my life so that I can remember you, because your remembrance will help me to come out of this bhava sagar, right? So this cycle of birth and death. So even as sadhakas, so in our life also, so nothing is smooth, right? So we have times when we are happy, we have times when we are stressed, and we are going through some difficult situations in our life. So we need to have faith in the Supreme Lord that no, whatever is happening in my life, it is as per the will and wish of the Lord, and whatever He wishes is best for me, right? So many a times, no, we think that okay, I'm not having a proper job or proper business, probably someone else is having a better role than me. Sometimes we see okay, our family situations are not so good, probably someone is having a better life situation, sorry, family situation, right? So probably they are into well uh, circumstances, right? So probably someone is not having a spouse who is very much inclined to do devotional service, or sometimes kids are not as we expect, no? So in some house we see okay, kids are very obedient. So sometimes we see okay, our kids are not obedient, and we are not uh, it is not a very good situation for us to be in, because obviously that would add more sorrow and frustration in life, right? So but for a devotee, no, we see that we should take example, or we should follow the path of great devotees like Kunti Maharani. And here in this case also, King Anga, no, once he was very unhappy that he didn't had any son, right? Now, after a great effort, after the sacrifice, when he had son Veena, right, he was not very happy after he had that son, right? Because a bad son can take all your pious activities, right? Even in today's world also, for 40, 50 years, a father, he works hard to achieve whatever he has achieved in his life, right? It could be name, fame, prestige in the society, or some wealth, right? But if there is a bad son, he can ruin all his reputation among relatives. He can ruin all his reputation in the society. He can ruin all the his reputation, and even the wealth he has accumulated for all these years, he can just ruin that also, right? So in that case, what happens? A father thinks, okay, uh, if I had no son also, that situation have been better than having a son like this, no, who is not actually good, who is cruel, who doesn't follow the dharma, right? Who doesn't help, no, the family to progress further, be it materialistically or spiritually. So if such son is not begotten, then the parents thinks, no, we are better off having a kid, right? So in this case also, King Anga, he was thinking that no, I should not had this son, right? But after some time, he again thought, okay, it is better to have a bad son than good son, right? So the reason remains the same, because he was having bad son, so he was going through a lot of stress, right? And he actually was thinking more on how to be detached from family life, how he can be detached from his son, how he can detach himself from his social obligations or social relationship, right? So it is very natural, right? So when you have a very good children, so they perform so many good activities, then you get praised by your relatives, your family members, the society, and then you get more attached, and the more they do, and if you are not able to take that what is it, success, right? Or whatever you are getting from the society or family members, then it becomes very difficult for you to perform devotional activities, right? Because you get dragged and attached to the material life, and you get attached to those praises and the success what you are getting. But if you have a very bad kid, right? And everybody is like he's cursing, no, your son has done this, he's not proper, and you're fed up, with all those negativity from society or from family members, and whatever effect, your kid is having on you with his negative actions, then you feel more detached, no, you are more inclined in detaching yourself from all these things, from your son, your family, your social obligations, right? So in this way, King Anga also, he thought, oh no, it is actually good to have a bad son, because that would help me actually detach from this material world, right? So thinking this, what did King Anga do? He actually made King Veena as the king, and he departed to forest, right? So actually having a son like him actually helped King Veena to renounce immediately and then move to forest. Before, until then, he was more interested in taking care of his family, his praja, his kingdom. But once he begot son, and he saw that how cruel, no, his son Veena was. So he was such a cruel person that even from small age, whenever he would just simply play with kids, he would just throw them. He would throw them in lakes and kill them. He would just throw them from the hilltop just for fun, and he would kill. And as he grew, when he started his training as a kshatriya, he would just go to forest and kill indiscriminately. So it is mentioned that even the thieves and dacoits who were there in the kingdom, they would be very much worried even to plunder people. So they would be thinking that if we plunder and if we harass people, no, this King Veena will come and in turn harass us. That how dare you harass them, because I am the only one who can harass. So King Veena, he goes to such an extent that no, after he becomes actually king, so he abandons all the religious principles. No, he makes sure that in all of his kingdom, no religious principles are followed, no sacrifices are followed, and he would harass his people in general, so much that even the people like the dacoits and thieves or bad elements, they would fear not to do anything to the praja, right? Because they would fear that if we do something, then King Veena would harass us or he would punish us, right? So King Anga, he actually goes to forest looking at the situation. He becomes so much detached because of his son's activities. And then the Brahmanas or the ministers, they think that, of course, before King Veena is made king, when King Anga leaves the kingdom to forest. So it so happens that at one night, King Anga feels so much of detached that when everybody is sleeping, so he leaves the palace. No, it is not that he officially announces that, no, okay, I'm I am actually giving up my kingly responsibilities and I would install my son and then I would go to forest. No, he doesn't have any formal ceremony or he doesn't have any formal announcement. So just one night, he wakes up in the night when everybody is asleep. So he feels so much of detachment that he just walks away. Right. So we can just see, because of his bad son, how much it was helpful for him to mentally detach from this material world and simply surrender to the Supreme Lord. Right. So many a times in our lives also, we see there are some situations which arises where we feel completely hopeless, right? So we feel that none in this world are helping us. No, we see that our near and dear ones, they are not able to understand our situation. They are not able to understand, or they don't have the empathy what we are going through, and we are left alone to face the whatever situation we have. So that time, a person's only solace or only shelter is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? Or the advanced devotees, right? So in that case, the only thought which comes to a sane person is that he should surrender more to the Supreme Lord and then he should concentrate on his end goal, because generally, theoretically, all of us know that no, we should be surrendering completely ourselves to the Supreme Lord and engage in his devotional activities, right? So in Bhagavad Gita, we see Krishna saying that no, whatever you do it for me, right? So even in Grahastha ashram also, even though most of us are in Grahastha ashram, so we can have a mindset where we are offering all our activities, whether we go to office, we take care of our children, or whatever we do in our family life, or whatever sevas we perform in our circle level or a temple. So the only thought we should be having is all this I'm doing to for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, right? But that is what we should be doing all the time, 24 bar 7. That's how we can be Krishna conscious all the time in whatever situation we are, right? Whether one is a housewife, one is working, or one is a student studying, but still, if we can have this kind of thought process, we can be Krishna conscious all the time. But it is not so practically, right? So there is a mission, right? So we have material desires, we have our own comfort level where we want to enjoy or cater some time to other activities, and we have some time catering to our Krishna conscious activities, right? But when these situations come in our life, then it makes us to think, oh no, I have to actually reduce my activities or energy which I'm spending on material aspect and actually quota that to my spiritual activities, right? So that's when people start taking their sadhana very seriously. They chant very seriously. They try to hear or read very consciously, because they want to gather knowledge. Because the mind which is agitated or which is going through some sorrow, it can get solace only when it takes knowledge from shastras or it hears the harikatha, right? So in that way, actually, a person shifts his energy or time from whatever he's given to material activities. He shifts and he gives it to the spiritual activities, right? So here also we can see that King Anga, finally he's frustrated. He's frustrated to so level that he wants to completely give up all his material activities, whatever he's doing, and then he wants to go to the forest, right? So in this context, we see in from Bhagavad Gita also there is one famous shloka where I think it comes in 8th or 9th shloka here. Yeah, so here Prabhupada explaining in actually shloka of 8th and ninth verse of this chapter. He says, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shoshati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labbate param. So actually this shloka is quoted, Prabhupada quotes this shloka for King Utkala because he's like Mahabhagavat, no, he's like Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, right? So he doesn't have anything else in his mind. So the only thing he has in his mind is like he wants to do devotional service, right? And in that state of mind, when one is at Prasannatma, right? So actually, we were reading actually a few months back in Krishna book. Uh, this is, I think, in 80th chapter or in the last part of Krishna book, where we see that the personified Vedas, they are actually praying. And in that context, Vedas explain, no, they are telling that in one of the Upanishads, it is mentioned like what are the different levels of identification a Atma goes through, right? So there are five kinds of level of identifications, which the Upanishad explains. The first one is Annamaya, then Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya. So Annamaya is where a person is more interested in eating, right? So if you look at the small kids, so they're always conscious of eating something, right? So there are many times even we complain, or I have seen many devotees, parents also, they complain that our kids, they every half an hour they ask something to eat, right? So the kids, at that level, they are always annamaya. So they are always thinking, what I can eat, what good items or what different items I can eat, right? So that is the level of the kids, right? Then pranamaya, right? Then after they grow up, then they think of maintaining their life, right? So if you look at kids, they play in such a playful way that they don't care if they get hurt also, right? So if you just leave a 2 year or 3 year old kid on the road, right? They would not mind, oh, the vehicles are coming, no, I could get hit. No, I may die also. They would not think. They would be very playful, right? Because they don't think of living. No, they're not care. I'm taking breathe and I have to take this. I have to maintain this breath, right? But once we become little elder, from that stage, so we become conscious of our breath, right? So the maintaining our life becomes important for us, right? Then after a certain period, then what happens? Manomaya, right? So enjoying, through mind becomes the priority, right? So at that point of time, we are not worried about eating, we are not worried about maintaining life, right? Of course, those things are by default, but we don't give priority. We have risen from that level, right? From Annamaya to Pranamaya to Manomaya, right? So most of the people are in this Manomaya, right? In this material world, someone who has not read the scriptures, who doesn't follow the life of Bhagavad Gita, then obviously he would die with Manomaya only. He cannot grow further from that state, right? So it is a level where the sense gratification is a priority of life, right? So if you see today, all the elders, day in and day out, what they are thinking, they are thinking how they can sense gratify better, right? So if they are having uh, a normal house, they think, okay, at least after 5 years, I should buy a very luxurious house in a good locality or so. Or if they're having two-wheeler, they think, okay, I should buy a four-wheeler. If they have a four-wheeler, they think I should buy a better. And if they're better off, then they think, okay, last this year we have gone to Malaysia, Singapore, and next year we'll go to Europe trip. And then they think, okay, after 6 months we'll go to US trip. So like that, every person, right, whomever you pick, once they come, they are above this pranamaya. So you can see that day in and day out, they're thinking about how they can enjoy their senses. So this is manomaya, right? So after this level, if someone is very intelligent, if he can realize, okay, though I want to be happy, but I am faced I'm facing sorrow or very um, what to say situations where I'm not happy and I don't wish to be in that, right? Very complicated situations. So in that situation, what happens? Someone tries to question, okay, what is this life? No, who am I? So at that time, what happens? This Jnanamaya, this level is identified, right? So that time, what happens? A person like all of us, no, at one point of time, we would also have been completely with Manomaya, right? Of course, today also there is a mission of all these things. But at one point of time, we thought, okay, no, this is not all in our life. So we should try to look for something more, right? Something else where we can find some satisfaction, right? So that's when all of us we rediscovered our spiritual life. You know, reading Bhagavad Gita, meeting devotees, going to temple, right? So this is Vijnanamaya, right? So someone understands know what is this life, what is the purpose of life, and someone who achieves what is the goal of this Vignan. It is to realize the Supreme Lord. It is to actually get the Swarup, the Swarup, our original position in which we serve the Supreme Lord. So someone who can realize that, then he is in Anandamaya, right? So here we can see that King Veena, he has passed through all the stages, right? And then out of frustration, because of his bad son, so now he wants to go and realize God, and that is the state he's in. So in that state, he actually lives the kingdom. And then King Veena, so though the ministers are not very much inclined in making King Veena as the king, but because a kingdom without a king would have very negative effect on the prajas. So that's why without no option, they would just make King Veena as the king. But once they make him king, then they face so many repercussions, right? So they feel that it was not a good idea to make him as a king. But he comes to a point where he actually stops doing the dharmic activities. He stopped everyone from performing sacrifices. So he makes sure that no dharmic actions are performed in his kingdom. So at that point of time, the sages, no, they realize that no, that he has gone too far. So now it's time for us to kill him because there is no other force in the world, no, which can stop him. So they thought, no, they themselves has to check him from further degrading himself and degrading the kingdom also. So at that time, no, the sages, the priest, they take a decision that they would curse and with their mantras, they would kill King Veena. And because now King Veena is killed, so we'll see in further chapters how, because they need to have a king for the kingdom, so they would actually churn this body of a King Veena, and they would make the Lord appear, in his King Prithu form. So this is one of the form of the Lord or Saktesha avatar of the Lord, who actually comes in the form of Prithu Maharaj, and actually he takes care of the kingdom after King Veena is being killed. So with this, the chapter ends. So in the next chapter, we'll see how we'll see in more detail like how King Veena is born and how he's killed, and then how Prithu Maharaj is born after King Veena is killed by the sages. So here actually this is just in this chapter we see that there is a context being given because Vidura asked Maitreya Muni that how no a king is being killed by the sages. So to answer that, no, all these things we have seen. Maitreya Muni explains that how cruel King Veena was, and that's the reason he was being killed by the sages. So with this, we will stop the session. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So if anybody is having any questions or comments,